Hello, and welcome to this episode of Life from the Inside Out with Kris. If you're loving this metaphysical content, hit that like button, hit subscribe, and press the bell so you get notifications when Kris releases cool new metaphysical content. And also, feel free, put comments down below. This will help perhaps drive the discussion, and we look forward to hearing from you. Let's go ahead and begin. All right, welcome everybody. Today we're going to be talking with Kris, and I just wanted to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Dan Winkle. I've been reading or working with Kris for over 20 years and reading his material as well as being part of a group meets regularly for the last 7 years. And I also wanted to introduce my friend Serge Granbois, who is going to be channeling Kris.
Hi, Dan, and it's nice to be here. Um, and in fact, I actually was looking very much forward to doing this when you suggested we could do it together. Because it's been a few years. I did some in the past with my friend John, um, who passed away, I think about 4 years ago now. Um, and those were very interesting. I especially liked the discussions we had on his red chairs.
Yeah.
Um, they were kind of iconic in a way. He got them specifically for that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, that's enjoyable, and I love sharing Chris with whoever wants to share. I'm quite happy doing that, and I've been doing this now for 40 years, so it's a long time, and I'm constantly surprised at all the stuff that Chris can still come up with after all this time, and he seems to be getting deeper and deeper into it. So that's kind of neat. And of course, the ideas and the material that he presents are familiar to anybody who's ever read Seth from Jane Roberts, who has listened to Abraham from Esther Hicks, or Bashar from Darrow Lanka, and so many others. Um, and all of them have their own individual personalities, and just as Chris has his own. Um, and one thing I have learned in the past is that Chris has a pretty nice sense of humor, and that's enjoyable. Like, I don't necessarily remember every detail of everything he talks about, but sometimes I have an idea of the mood he presented, or the gist of something he talked about, um, and that's kind of fun too. So, anyways, maybe I'll just get down and do the Chris thing, which we spell Kris.
Yeah, sounds good. And hoping maybe we can get a series title and maybe a little introduction of what we're going to do as we work on these videos.
Indeed, we trust that you are comfortable, and we thank you for your consideration.
Oh, thanks as well, Kris.
Now, as for a title, perhaps something along the lines of discussions about life, but from the inside out.
Hmm.
And our point of view is that life is an inside job, not an outside job. Life stems from your life experiences, stem from ideas, thoughts, beliefs that the individual entertains, or even has considerable emotional involvement in. And these are then reproduced as events, conditions, and circumstances. There is an old saying about the quote, human condition, unquote. And our point is that it is referred to as the human condition because it is created by humans, not something that assails the human being, but that the human being creates. The human being's actions, thoughts, words all stem from what that human being believes in, meaning about life, about experience, and so on and so forth. These are then encountered as the conditions of life. So, life is a very interesting subject, far more so than you would ever be able to suspect. And if we can offer and shed a little bit of light and insights into the little dark corners, into the nooks and crannies of life, then we are most humbly happy to do it. Now, for those of you who have not encountered this kind of experience or phenomenon before, as Joseph and we ourselves have suggested often, the references to Jane Roberts and Seth, Darrell and Bashar, Asterix and Abraham are quite instanding and can give you a point of reference. We have our own personality and we have our own approaches, and we enjoy the discussions and exchanges with physically represented individuals. We are not physically represented, but we do speak through Joseph, our friend here, with his permission. And as he has pointed out, we have been doing so for 40 years. It has altered his life, and it has helped the lives of many people who we have shared information with. So please feel free to continue.
Yeah, I don't know. It keeps coming to me. There was an interesting correlation. I was just going to say, the title, not to be confused with the Disney movie Inside Out. Um, but I know we've been talking a lot about feelings as well, and so that's what role are those playing? I know this is a huge topic, but how does that mix in with some of the things you were just talking about?
So you have feelings about literally everything. It cannot be avoided. Every thought, every word, every action, everything in your life is the result of some kind of feeling. Even if you recognize them or not, they are involved. In doing so, you create a very, very specific situation just for yourselves. And your feelings act as an indicator, if you like, just like when you are driving and you want to turn right or left, you put your turn signal on. That indicates to the people behind you driving that you are going to be turning right or left. So your feelings are like that. They are indicators of what kind of ideas or beliefs that you hold on to that are generating the situation or the events of your life. And this can give you great insight into the contents of your own mind. What do you hold in this thing here? It is not just cotton swabs. There is something even more interesting than the brain itself. And this is the ideas that you entertain, the thoughts you have about every aspect of life. Well, again, whether you recognize them or not. And the feelings themselves will show you what it is that you entertain about the situation presented to you now. So that gives you an amazing opportunity to literally investigate the whys and the hows and the whats and the whatnots of your experience, of your life. Does that make some sense to you?
It does, Chris. And I was thinking of, with the example of our body, we have a sense of touch or a sense of pain. If we put our hand on a hot plate or something, it's like, ouch, get out of there. And I'm thinking that we have the same equivalence for our mind in terms of beliefs, and our feelings give us a clue about those things.
They actually do. And they give you more than a clue of what you have in your mind about the situation. They make a definite inference. This is what you are thinking about here. This is what you are thinking about there. And if what you are thinking about is causing you a challenge or a difficulty in your life, then be time to change what you are thinking about. You have framed your experiences around certain sets of values, and you give energy to that. You uphold the values. You enrich the values. You invest in them. Even if long term it goes against your own best interest. And when you cannot notice what this is from, where it stems from, then of course you appear to be in a quandary. You wonder why this is happening in your life. Why is this happening to me? I am a good person. Why? Looking at the particular feelings in relation to what is happening now will definitely lead you to recognize, perhaps even the idea that you think, you believe, that life is a set of trials and tribulations, that somehow or other you must suffer from situations until you can become a better person. It has nothing to do with becoming a better or good person. You most likely already are. However, the collection, the baggage you have about yourself may go against your own best interest. And it would be a good time to leave that excess baggage at the curb, so to speak. Divest yourself of the investments in counterproductive beliefs or notions about life, and instead divest your investments and your interests in beliefs and ideas and notions that support, nurture you, that help you grow as an individual with your potential. Does that make some sense to you?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
We do understand that if you're new to the very idea that somehow or other your thoughts and feelings, emotions, and so on might somehow or other be responsible for the events and conditions of your life, we certainly understand the confusion that can arise because you might have been told your whole life long that something outside of you, some kind of outside agency, is responsible for what happens to you, whilst in truth, there are no such outside agencies. The only one responsible for the state of your being is you. The only one responsible for your feelings and your emotions and the thoughts and ideas that you entertain relevant to feelings and emotions is you. Knowing this gives you a decided advantage in being able to turn your situation around. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, and I mentioned the word in the last one of the other discussions we've had, but it seems that mindfulness or being aware of your feelings, emotions, imaginings would be a key ingredient to making those realizations.
Indeed, the very idea of language itself comes prepackaged with different cultures, societies, nations, civilizations. So we will refer to it as neurolinguistics. Your language affects your neurology, which affects your perceptions, which affects the state of your being. And you, in this way, you get belief systems that are beautifully interwoven into your thoughts and thought patterns and ideas. And these influence the outcomes of your actions, the outcomes of your deeds, and having a developing degree of awareness or mindfulness, especially of the language that you use, the words that you use, especially the words that you utilize in terms of your own self. Think about the inner dialogues that you have. How often are those inner dialogues positive, constructive, nurturing, supportive? Most likely they are often the very opposite. So that creates a particular set of beliefs that you then act upon. So you go out into the world, literally living out the inner dialogue that you have just entertained with yourself. So being mindful, being aware of the words and the language that you use with yourself in your own inner dialogue can have a tremendous impact in literally transforming your life situation. The beliefs that you entertain are also prepackaged in language. So language creates pathways to action. So for instance, in your society, it is not uncommon for men to tell young female children that perhaps one day they will make a good housewife. Perhaps one day they will make a good secretary. Perhaps one day they will make a very good airline hostess. Never thinking the young lady could become a NASA astronaut. She could even become the director of NASA. Never thinking that the so-called potential airline stewardess could actually fly the airline or even run the airline company. So this kind of misogyny is invisible in many ways until it is caught in the act. And mindfulness and awareness can very dramatically change the perception. Do not utilize the old language, the old linguistics. Change your own inner dialogues, change the way you speak to others. Will have a great impact, not only in yourself, but in the other. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. It makes a lot of sense. And one of the ways I've used that concept is, the language that you're using reveals the underlying belief systems. If somebody's saying to me, I have to do this, I have to do that, that implies that a sense of obligation and implies maybe not having control over a situation. So you could look at these language, understanding what the words mean, and then follow them back to certain maybe deeper beliefs.
Indeed, that is also correct. And of course, developing a sense of awareness or mindfulness can actually be extremely freeing. It can relieve a large burden from the self. Because if you utilize that kind of a language, if your linguistics and your neurolinguistics are in line with what we have already presented, then you are actually doing yourself a disservice. You are acting in line with suppression. You are literally, as a species, creating your own cognitive dissonances because you are not necessarily living up to your own potential. You are suppressing yourselves and others.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, we definitely can do that. And so, what you're saying too is we can ignore the different clues that we get from our language or our experience, and where that I guess our belief systems could be that powerful that we can ignore that type of thing too and suppress it.
Indeed, because sometimes it might even be considered too much of an effort to fight the system or to change the system, even in oneself, because so much is invested in it, so much time, so much energy, even centuries, millenniums have been invested in creating the particular kind of society, system, civilization that you have. And we might even address the very distinct possibility that human beings are born to fight and to lean into the system by taking it down. Otherwise, all of you would just lay down and accept all the situations put upon you. You would not have a certain sense of dignity. You would not have a certain sense of autonomy. You would simply always do exactly as you are told. And even those who do that a lot do have a breaking point. So, what we are suggesting is that there is an inherent quality in the human being that lends itself to lean into the walls or barricades or fortresses that the system itself imposes so that you can break free of your own limitations. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, and is there some ways, like right now in current events or the things that the happenings within our world, that some of these things are playing out? These belief systems.
There is indeed, but there is not sufficient investment yet. But there is a simple solution. Stop believing that wars bring peace, because it does not. And this has been proven on and on. If World War One was the war to end all wars, why did you have other wars after? If World War Two was to bring peace, why do you only have sporadic peace? Stop investing energy in war, in warfare, in warmongering, in war weapons or weapons of war and destruction. But your species is not quite there yet. You will get there. It will take some time. The sooner you head in that direction, the better it is, the better off you all are. There are other ways to deal with conflicts. Killing yourselves until there is no one left does not resolve any issue at all. All you end up with is a wasteland covered in blood.
Yeah, so for me, Kris, the one thing that I've discovered, and for me, primarily through meditation and many of the things that you've offered over time, was that I realized that earlier in my own life that I created a number of situations that they weren't global wars, but my own sort of internal wars, and they were reflected in things like work or the way events would unfold. And then over time, it really had to do with me looking at my own my own beliefs and what I was investing in, and then over time, those particular experiences shifted. You create something new. So what I'm hearing from you is that the work would then start as us as individuals, and then as more and more people did that, it would begin to be seen on the world stage.
Indeed. And you have hit upon a particular point as well. What you see manifest as large scale conflicts and wars and world wars are the result of a great number of unresolved inner conflicts that need an out. They need a platform. That energy is then played out on a larger scale, even a global scale. So if each individual addressed their own inner conflicts, their incongruencies, their own dichotomies, then you would have no interest in giving energy to conflict. You would instead be able to direct your energy towards nurturing situations. You would transform the world, not into a wasteland, but into what you like to call a paradise. It is within your possibilities. You are simply too caught up in your inner conflicts. And we highly suggest to not look towards institutionalized religions because they foment that very thought. Do you follow?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The very idea that a supernatural, invisible sky being can say, follow my way or I will destroy you, is already a setup for a conflict.
A question about that is that type of idea a particular idea that we have, and then somebody just kind of blows it up, creates it on like a cosmic scale, and then we get that type of being.
Repeat that?
Is that type of idea, would that be an idea that's we're talking about beliefs and ideas? Would that be a particular belief that somebody is holding on to, and then you make it so large and so grand that they sort of get stuffed into that cosmic and supernatural being?
It is a package deal, if you like, that you can pick up on the way into this plane of existence. Imagine going to the supermarket and instead of your Coca-Cola and Pepsi and your cookies and your rice and your tomatoes and your potatoes, you have aisles lined with all sorts of beliefs. On this aisle, you will see the sign. In this aisle, there is the beliefs in various kinds of gods, in various kinds of iniquities and sins. On this aisle, you have various kinds of beliefs about how the human being is a victim of events and conditions. And in this aisle, you have all sorts of package deals and on and on. So you go through this, and the kinds of challenges that you want to deal with, you put in your shopping cart. You have the same phenomenon in cyber shopping. When you go to Amazon, you look at all sorts of different products, you put them in your cart, and then you hit pay. Does that make some kind of sense?
Mm-hmm.
And as you come into this existence, you take birth, then you have all the other kinds of root assumptions about life. You have all sorts of ideas that you acquire from your familial unit, your society, your culture, your civilization. Some are nice, and some are actually quite challenging. Some are indeed extremely difficult because they appear as a truth. And once you accept something as a truth, then you've bought it. So now what do you do with that? Well, it becomes part of your experience. So it is entirely possible to return all the merchandise that you have bought and get something new. By returning, you simply no longer give any credence to any of the old beliefs that you have acquired. And clicking your shoes 3 times, wishing for something nicer, is not going to cut it because your experiences are 3 dimensionally physicalized for you to experience. They are projected from the inside out. Hence, life is an inside job. Does that make some sense to you?
Well, yeah, and thank goodness I'm not still playing with the same toys I played with when I was 5, you know?
Indeed. However, there are many people who 30, 40, 50 years later still play with the same toys they had as when they were children. And by toys, we of course understand you're referring to beliefs, some ideas that you accepted. So it is well worth inventorizing what you have in your mind at different times and how you can do something different. And of course, you can let go of what you used to believe in and then set up new kinds of ideas and beliefs about life. And a good place to begin is if you think of yourself as unworthy, now begin to think of yourself as worthy. You might encounter some resistance until you're more and more comfortable with the idea. And once you're more comfortable with the idea, you will be able to act upon it. And that will make an impactful difference into your experience, and especially the experience of you. Do you follow?
Yeah, and it seems like that's another point where some of the neurolinguistics can be helpful if you're noticing either in your language or your thoughts, you know, things related to not being worth it or something of that nature.
Indeed. And you can, there are many, many methods and techniques out there that can help you deal with the circumstances of those thoughts and ideas in your own mind. EFT is one of them, emotional freedom technique. We have thought our own variation on the theme, and there are so many other tools out there that people can utilize to literally neutralize the energy they have invested in the old systems and begin to direct their attention to the new system that they want to actualize. And once that kicks in, you have a wonderful expression, watch out.
Yeah, that would
Now,
seem
we
time for time for transformation.
indeed, perhaps it can be a very nice title, Times for Transformations. Now, we believe it might be time for a pause.
Yes, let's we'll end this little episode here, and yeah, thanks for our little metaphysical chat, Kris.